This is Michelle Anderson of Clarinet Mentors. Today I would like to show those of you who are relatively new to clarinet how to shape your mouth and use your air to get your first sound, and also how to really start with great habits so that you sound really good as you're learning the instrument. I've been a professional teacher and a performer for over 30 years now, and I really believe that if you have a good system for learning things, you can learn to play quite quickly, and you can also sound good relatively quickly. I like to divide the embouchure up into 3 different steps to remember, and if you have these in mind, you should sound pretty good. Step 1 is probably the most important part of our embouchure. It's what we do with our bottom lip and our chin. On the clarinet, we have our reed in place on the mouthpiece, and the way we get sound on the clarinet is we blow air across the reed and activate it so that it vibrates like crazy, just like my hand is doing right now. The better the reed vibrates, the better our tone is going to be. So the reason that this part of our face is really important is that the reed actually is going to rest right upon our bottom lip and chin. What we want to do is have just the very edge of the pink part of our lip go over our bottom teeth, sort of like this. And everything else we're going to pull down away from the mouthpiece and the reed. Now you can actually see this better from the side, so I'm going to turn sideways and just show you what that might look like. So I'm going to pull it down, and now you can see there's a nice concave shape there. And most of us have a natural shape where our chin bone sort of curves in. This takes a little bit of practice to do. It's not a natural feeling for most of us. So as we get into the next step, you can help your muscles learn how to do that by actually pulling it down with your finger. So the step 2 is our top teeth actually do touch directly upon the top of the mouthpiece. And there's sort of an ideal place to do that on both mouthpieces. You can get into more details on that as you get more advanced, but if you want a rough guideline for right now, if you were to hold your mouthpiece up to a light source, you would notice, if you look at it sideways, that there's a space between the reed and the tip of the mouthpiece, and that if you go down the mouthpiece a ways, eventually they join. On my mouthpiece, it's right about here. If you were to put your finger in that spot and then just sort of horizontally slide it over to the back of your mouthpiece, that's approximately where you want your top teeth to go. So it gives you a good guideline. So step 1, we have the edge of our lip over our bottom teeth. We pull everything down. Step 2, our top teeth are going to touch the top of the mouthpiece. This will probably feel a little weird, but that's clarinet playing for you. Step 3 is the corners of our mouth are going to wrap in and sort of squeeze the sides of the mouthpiece, almost like your lips, instead of being a nice oval shape, are a round rubber band, and the rubber band is going to squeeze the mouthpiece from the sides. So step 1, 2, 3. All right, why don't you go ahead and try that with me. It's really good to practice the embouchure by looking in a mirror or videotaping yourself on your computer or your iPhone or whatever handy gadgets you have. Then you can see what you're doing. This concept of pulling it away from the reed with your bottom lip and chin, again, I'm going to turn sideways, is really important because the reed will vibrate like crazy and we don't want to muffle it. The world's worst embouchure would probably look something like this. You can see I just have blob on the reed and it's not going to vibrate very well. So what I can do when I start is to take a finger and coax those muscles to point down a little bit further away from the reed. All right, that's basically the 3 steps to making a good embouchure. The second part of making a good sound is what we do with our air. And frankly, how we use our air in clarinet is something that we work on for years and years to master. But the basic concept is actually pretty simple, and you can learn it right away. If we could see the air blowing out of your mouth the same way we can see water blowing out of a garden hose, what we want to imagine is that we have a built-in valve to adjust the spray. On clarinet, what we want is a super small, fast, focused airstream. And this would be the same thing we would do on our hose if we were power washing, if we wanted to adjust that valve to the fastest, most powerful water stream. We're not using more water or less water, we're just taking the water that's coming out when we adjust the valve and moving it faster. And that's true with our airstream on the clarinet. So when we're ready to start playing our first notes, we want to imagine that our air is focused and fast. And if you're blowing that way, you can hear it hissing. It almost sounds like the way the air would sound at an air pump at a gas station, right? It's very compressed air. So you can practice that without your clarinet. Warm, misty air would sound like this, and it would be that fine spray. Fast air will be much more focused. So to make my first sound, I'm holding the clarinet with my right thumb on the thumb rest. I'm just going to put the instrument in my mouth and play. I'm actually playing a G, and since I'm not pressing any keys and all the holes are open, the nickname for that note is our open G. So I'm going to have my 3-step embouchure. 1, 2, 3. That's what I can get for my first sound, an open G. If my air is too slow, if I kind of have my valve set to a fine misty spray, I may still get that note, but it's going to sound airy, or the word I use is mushy airstream. So let me play that open G with mushy air. You can hear the note trying to come out, but you also hear a lot of hiss in the sound. And that's really common when you're first starting. If you hear that in your own sound, what you need to do is just speed that air up. All right, so try that again. 3-step embouchure, fast air. Let's try your open G and see if you get a great sound. For some of you, just following those 3 steps and thinking about fast air will mean you're already getting a great sound on that open G, and that's wonderful. My expectation is, though, that some of the time it's not going to work that easily. So I also want to tell you about the 3 most common problems that people encounter when they're trying to make a good sound when they're new to the instrument. And if you know what these are, I can also tell you how to fix them, so that as soon as they happen, you'll recognize them and you'll fix them. So most common problem number 1 is you go through all those steps and you get ready to blow and absolutely no sound comes out of the clarinet. So again, we want to make sure your reed's kind of in place properly, because if it's really crooked or way too low or way too high, you might get no sound. But I'm going to assume that's already in good shape. So the biggest reason that we blow and get no sound is that we're concentrating so hard. Our jaw is concentrating, and it's concentrating shut the reed. The reed, as you know, is very soft and it will vibrate open and shut, but it doesn't take a lot of pressure to actually squeeze it completely shut. And sometimes when we concentrate, our jaw pinches it shut. So if you're blowing and nothing comes out, you might just have to gently open your jaw a little bit. I can demonstrate what that might look like. So I'm thinking of my 3 steps. I've got my air going well, and nothing comes out. You may get air leaking out the sides of your mouth because there's nowhere else for it to go. If I do that and just open my mouth a bit, I will get sound. Now, if I open my mouth too far, I'll transform from getting good sound to getting just the airy, whispery sound. And we actually do need a little bit of pressure on the bottom lip. So if by chance you just hear this sound, your jaw might actually be too loose. That's rare. Usually it's that we're biting too much rather than being too loose. But just in case you're getting that, it's a matter of getting the jaw pressure correct. All right, most common problem number 2 is that you're getting a lot of what I call squeaking, just high-pitched sounds, something like this. So you're trying to get a nice mellow open G and you get this high note. Again, very easy to fix if you know how to do it. It might indicate, and squeaking often does, that you are biting the reed a little bit. If you're biting the reed a lot, you'll pinch it shut and you'll get no sound. But if you're just biting it a little bit, you're going to squeak. So the first thing you might try is just, again, loosening your jaw a little bit, or probably even more proactive is round your corners in, and that tends to open up our jaw anyway, and it's a good habit to have. The other thing it could indicate if you're squeaking, and it's very common when you're first starting, is that you've actually put too much mouthpiece in your mouth. So I gave you that guideline of the spot where the reed and the mouthpiece join together is about where your teeth should be. If you go beyond this point, it'll just squeak. So all you have to do is just take a little bit out of your mouth, back up a little bit. In fact, with a little bit of mouthpiece in our mouth, we get a little bit of reed vibrating. So you'll get sound. A little more mouthpiece, we get more reed vibrating, so we get better sound. So in general, the more mouthpiece we have, the better we sound, until we hit that invisible squeak point that exists on every mouthpiece. When we cross it, we've gone too far. So I could test that by just playing a couple notes and seeing where I hit the squeak point. So I start with a little bit of mouthpiece, a little bit more. Ah, sounds better. A little bit more. Oh, even better. A little bit more. gone too far. So if you're squeaking, that's probably what's going on for you. Finally, the third most common problem people have when they're trying to get a good sound is one that I've actually already talked about a little bit. It's that our air is too wimpy. We don't have our air valve adjusted to get that really fast airstream. And that'll give you either no sound or a very, very wimpy sound. So the clues are that you hear a lot of hiss in the sound. So here's me playing with wimpy air. And it can feel very frustrating because it feels like I'm doing everything correctly, but the sound's not coming out well. What my air was doing, if I were to just take the clarinet out of my mouth, was this. It's a very slow airstream. If I can speed that up and do the same thing, it's going to work much better. Now the really fun thing about clarinet, which I know you're going to enjoy, is if you have your three-step embouchure in good shape, and if you're blowing your air really quickly in that sort of cold, focused airstream, you can play most notes on the instrument. All you have to do then is learn where to put your fingers. And this is the reason that I think if you have a good system, you can sound really good really quickly. Learning the fingering is not so hard. All I have to do is know where to add each note, and keeping my air and embouchure exactly the same, many notes can come out. All that was just me going. I'm a little three-step embouchure and fast air machine, and the rest is easy. So good luck with all of that, and that sort of covers how we make our first sound with great habits. If you've enjoyed watching this video and find it helpful, I'd love to share lots of other great information with you on how to play clarinet better and more easily. The best way for you to access that great information is to become a member of my Clarinet Mentors community. You'll see a link in the write-up below under this video to www.learnclarinetnow.com. If you go there, you can sign up for the Clarinet Mentors community. That'll immediately give you access to a page that has all of my free videos available to you, and you'll also get a free subscription to the Clarinet Mentors e-newsletter. That comes about every 2 weeks, and each issue will have a valuable piece of information about how to make clarinet easier for you to play, and maybe some great recommendations on equipment and gear that would make life easier for you as well. So please join up. Right below, learnclarinetnow.com. I look forward to having you join the Clarinet Mentors community.